Ohio State 1, Georgia 2, Michigan 3, Florida State 4. If the season ended right now, that's the team I would want to play if I was Florida State. I would want to play Ohio State.
The Washington thing would have pissed me off just because, man, that USC team is not impressive. They're kind of in a tailspin. How would that win have been enough to push you over when Florida State would get penalized for winning a game on the road with 5 wide receivers out?
Let's get Gene on in here, the founder and administrator of Warchant.com, joining us here live on the playoff reaction show. Hit the thumbs up, everybody. We certainly would appreciate it. Gene's seen these polls. It's been a while, obviously, since Florida State's been in the thick of all this, but things holding steady for Florida State, remaining undefeated, remaining at number 4, standing pat. Gene, your thoughts on the second revelation here of the college football playoff poll in 2023?
Well, I was bummed I had to put away my soapbox, man. I had it all warmed up. I was going to come up here. I was just like, I was so angry because you saw that CBS poll earlier. They had Washington pick number 4, and I had all my arguments ready to go to blast the committee. Darn it. No drama. What's up with this? And I know Gator Kirk made that comment earlier. I figured for sure they're going to do something to shake it up. I mean, what excitement is this? So, but we'll keep tuning in every week just to see what they're going to do. But, I think, and I already made the point too about what was my biggest thing was going to be to bother me that they played a USC team, it was relatively obviously back and forth close to the end. It is not a good USC team, but they've got the number 1 draft pick on the team. They got name recognition. There's another team that had a close game against Florida State that they were penalized for playing, and that's Boston College, another 3-loss team. But for some reason, everybody's forgot that that was such a bad game by Florida State. Well, BC's actually pretty darn good now. So, you got to look at stuff like that. And I'm still mad at the whole thing. I would have gone off too on Washington. That Arizona State game, you cannot discount that. They did not score an offensive touchdown. They were losing to Arizona State. I looked at one of the power rankings. Arizona State's in the hundreds. I mean, that is it's a 2-win team. That is a really bad team to roll in to Washington. But I've not heard them mention that once on any of these shows. Nobody brings that up. That was a horrible performance by them. They should have lost to a really bad team. But as things stand, I guess more or less they got it right. FSU's in control of their own destiny. Even if they were 5, I was still going to try to, put it out there. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. You win your games, you're in. I don't see any scenario where they could possibly, Florida State's undefeated, wins the ACC. Especially, it was good to see Louisville up to number 11. And I think that's justifiable. I don't know if you guys talked about that, but I think that's justifiable. And I think if they win out, I mean, what are they going to be? 7, 6, 7, something like that. If they keep winning their games in that ACC championship game, that's going to look a hell of a lot better than whoever Ohio State, Michigan plays in the Big Ten championship. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's a weird. I mean, that's the thing. I think the fear that some Florida State fans have, and part of it is, some of it is the team's 9-0. You got to figure out something to kind of worry about. People have to figure out something to be concerned about. So I think there's a fear that, if Ohio State and Michigan play to basically a 1-point game, or just basically it could go either way, and and one of them wins by basically 1 point or 2 points, or Alabama continues to look good and steamrolls Georgia or something crazy like that, could they get vaulted by a 1-loss team and left out? Especially if they don't look good in these last few games, where Florida and Miami are both going to end up with maybe 4 or 5, maybe 6 losses. That's the doomsday scenario, but I'm with you. I just don't think there's any scenario where that's going to happen, where Florida State would get passed by a one-loss team.
And undefeated. I mean, an undefeated and all those scenarios are the one thing about those, no matter what it is. I mean, Michigan, Ohio State, you're putting in a team that's not going to be, I guess, they wouldn't be a conference champ for one. So You're putting them in over an undefeated conference champ, a 1-loss non-conference champ at a Power 5. It just doesn't add up. Now, I guess the scenario where Alabama beats Georgia, and that we've seen them do that before and get in. But again, it would be bizarre. I think the outrage would be so huge. I don't think they would do it. I don't think the committee has the balls to screw over FSU to help Alabama. And I know they've done Alabama favors in the past getting them in playoffs in scenarios like this. I can't see that happening though. So I think it's okay. But, there's that really there's like that 1% chance where you're a little bit worried that could happen.
Don't dare them. That felt like a dare. That felt like an open dare, Gene.
Do it, committee. I want to see you. No, I don't want to see him do that. That would be awful. I think we'd go the UCF route, Ira, right, and still claim the national championship.
Yeah, I guess the thing is, like, you'd only if Florida State had no good wins, then maybe. But Florida State's got some good wins. I mean, again, I still think
plural though, Ira. I don't know if nationwide people feel the Duke win is all that great or the Clemson win is all that great.
Well, how about Notre Dame believes it?
Yeah, Ohio State's going to have to buy into that if they want to hang on to the Notre Dame thing. But if Michigan beats them, that kind of, renders that point moot. It's just at this point right now, Georgia and Alabama, if they're on a collision course, Georgia's going to have wins over Ole Miss, Tennessee. Both those teams are ranked in the top 15. And if they were to lose like a one-possession game against Alabama and they'd won 28 out of their last 29 games, I mean, there's a possibility they could put both those teams in. I don't think I'd agree with it over an undefeated Power 5 champion. But again, Florida State's not going to have any kind of signature win for the last 8 weeks. That might be that kind of door that opens ajar. Well,
here's one thing I would say. Mike Norvell likes to talk about control what you can control. Beat the crap out of Miami and Florida. Get some style points. Don't muddle your way through and just kind of, again, you can't always control that, but if you can win in convincing fashion, there's motivation to do that because, again, that just strengthens your case if you're just dismantling teams. Because, look, the only reason Michigan looks good, it's not because of who they've beaten. It's because they've just destroyed these teams. They destroyed Nebraska. They destroyed Minnesota. So
it's reputation. It's reputation. They've been in the playoff the last 2 years, so it's their brand and their reputation.
But it's also the fact that they thrashed a bunch of these teams. That matters. I mean, I think that matters. If Florida State needs to look good in winning these games.
Ohio State, again, beat Rutgers last week. Their quality wins, Notre Dame and Penn State, they were 9th and 7th, but Notre Dame has dropped to 20th. Penn State, I think, 11th or 10th? Georgia's remaining schedule, though, very impressive. They got their first ranked win of the season last week against Missouri between the hedges. Michigan, meanwhile, as you see there, no wins against any ranked teams, but that could probably change here coming soon. Number 11, Penn State, that was last week's ranking, and then number 1, Ohio State. Florida State, meanwhile, you all know, 24-7 win over Pitt. Their key wins over LSU, 45-24. Was it 45-24? I put that in without even researching it. I just thought that was like right off the dome. But they beat LSU. They also beat Duke. Remaining schedule, Miami, North Alabama, and Florida. Ultimately, seems like all these schedules will probably be pretty evenly weighted. When the dust settles, maybe Georgia would have the strongest case because they're ranked opponents. They're getting towards the end of their season, so maybe they end up being number 1, and then you're number 4, and then at that point, you are probably in the Sugar Bowl in New Orleans. So those are the resumes of the teams in front of Florida State. Florida State, though, still controls their destiny, obviously. Just has to keep winning to make it to the playoff.